welcome back. If you're new to my channel, hi, I'm Anusha and I'm currently in my first year of medicine at King's College London, and this is the third of a series of videos that I've made to do with Bmat prep. Now in this video I'm going to be going through section 2 of the exam and how I went about preparing for it, as well as some of the tips that I learnt along the way that will hopefully be useful for those of you that are preparing to sit it. Again, I would like to apologise for any Bmat flashbacks this might bring back, but it's all for a good cause. Now the first thing to note is that there's no changes to the number of questions or the formatting for section 2. So essentially section 2 tests for an appropriate level of core scientific knowledge and how you're able to apply it in certain scenarios. So again, it touches upon a bit of problem solving as well, similar to section 1, but focuses more on the science aspect of it. Another point to make is that the questions are all at a GCSE level standard. However, the questions can be taken from any of the exam boards. There are so many. There's, for example, AQA, which is the one that I did. There's OCR, there's EdExcel, there's CAIE. So there might be topics included in there that you may not have covered, and that's why the Assumed Knowledge Guide is really good, because it covers all of the topics you need to know, and that way you can figure out if there are any topics that you haven't learnt yet and then make sure to prioritise those. Another thing that's similar to section 1 is that there's no calculator allowed. Mental maths will prove beneficial for biology, chemistry, maths and physics, so it's a really good skill to have. In terms of the structure of the exam, you have 30 minutes to answer 27 questions. So that's roughly a minute per question when you think about it, and it might seem like a lot, but it's really not when it comes to the exam. So speed and accuracy are really important for this part of the exam, and it's a lot more time pressured than section 1. But there are no penalties for incorrect responses. You only get positively marked for the questions you get right. So make sure to answer all 27 questions so that you increase your chances of getting a higher score. Now let me start with my favourite subject. No, I'm joking. It's a great subject. Physics! Now in section 2 of the Assumed Knowledge Guide, there are 6 topics that are covered for physics, and I've listed them all down here. Now of course the questions vary yearly and you can't possibly predict the exact type of questions that will come up, but usually electricity is quite a common one that they like to use, as well as energy and forces. So if I were to prioritise questions, those 2 topics might be the ones that I look at first. But again, it's up to you. You might find that electricity is the subject you're the strongest at, so you'll need to spend the least amount of time on it. It's really up to the person and how they feel about each of the subtopics. My first main tip, especially for those that didn't take physics for A-level, please don't overlook it. This might be like the most difficult topic to revise, especially because you haven't covered it for a few months. You did it at GCSEs and now you might have come out of the loop of it, but trust me, it is a topic that you want to give good attention to. You want to be able to say that you gave enough time to all of the subjects and not just focus on the ones that you're doing for A-level. However, I do understand that it might be more difficult to revise for you because you're less familiar with it compared to biology and chemistry. Can relate. Some of the questions actually might be more straightforward than some of the other biology and chemistry questions. For example, the formula questions that require you to memorise formula and just sub numbers in. So by revising physics, you'll be able to gain quick and easier marks and then be able to boost your confidence a little bit when it comes to some of the more difficult questions. So revise physics. Number 2, I'd say, is learning all of the content, and I'd start by filling in the gaps of knowledge that you might have from GCSE. There might be some topics that you've forgotten or some topics that you're a bit rusty with. So I'd say prioritise those first and then work your way backwards to the ones that you feel like you would be the most comfortable with. By plugging in the gaps of knowledge first, you're maximising your time and how you're using it, and that way you can be sure that you've covered at least all of the content. Memorise all of the formula. Now for physics there are a lot of formulae, so many. The good news is that a lot of the equations are linked. So for example, in electricity there are at least 5 or 6 equations that you could easily link together. So if memorising isn't something you would prefer to do, then you could just learn the key principles of physics, and then that would help you to link the equations together. By familiarising yourself with the equations, you save so much time in the exam, and it's just something that comes to you more naturally, and by it coming more naturally you just feel more comfortable with it. The main thing that I took away from physics is when you make mistakes, look at the explanations and then learn from your mistakes. As I mentioned in my section 1 video, revision is the time to be making mistakes so that you can note down where you went wrong and then hopefully avoid that in the future. So what I did with physics is that I had a little notepad, and every time I got a question wrong, I would write down the subject and I would write down the correct answer. And if I saw that I was getting that subject wrong frequently, I'd go back to the subject and then revise that a bit more before aiming to practice more questions. I just thought that was useful because that allowed to highlight any key gaps in knowledge that I might have, or anything that I just might be finding a little bit more difficult. Again, that's up to the person and everyone revises differently, so find out what works best for you. In terms of resources, there are so many things that you can use. Of course, you have the official Bmat questions from past papers that you can find on the official website, as well as other websites. I'll plug a few useful links below. You also have the ISC medical book, the 700 Bmat questions book that I recommended in the other video. They've got a lot of section 2 questions, and some of them can be more difficult than the real thing, but I think that's also useful because that allows you to build up your knowledge and build up your strategy, so by the time that you come to the exam you can go in feeling as confident as you possibly can. In terms of physics revision tips alongside my videos, also go check out Hippocratesmedbook. They've got some really good resources and they're doing a Bmat prep series post right now, and I use some of their tips in my video today. I'll put their Instagram somewhere up here. Best of luck for the people that are sitting their exam, and I hope that it all goes well. I'm hoping that you found the video insightful and that there were some useful tips to take away for those of you that are preparing for the exam. If you did find the video helpful, please make sure to leave a thumbs up. And if you're liking the content for my Bmat prep series so far, or for my channel, please make sure to subscribe for more content. I've got my section 3 video coming out very soon. I've also got more information about my channel on my Instagram, which is at my GKT monologues, if you want to check it out. And yeah, stay tuned.